Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. My name is Steve Smith. I'm one of the editors here at TMB Publishing. We publish 3 magazines for the industry, PHC News for the professional installer, Plumbing Engineer for the specifying engineer, and probably the one everyone I think is most familiar with tuning in today, the wholesaler for wholesale distributors. We are joined by a number of good speakers, particularly Dirk Beveridge, who will be leading off the presentation, but we have a number of executives from Oatey, Danze, and Winsupply, and also, of course, Data Alliance, our sponsor for today's webinar on VMI, increasing, improving, and smoothing supply chain effectiveness. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dirk, who will then introduce everybody, and he can take it from there. But I will add, before Dirk begins, that we've got about 50 minutes for the presentation, and we've left 10 minutes or so for Q&A. So I'll be glad to read any questions that anyone in the audience wants to text me, and I'll read them over the phone line. And then, of course, whoever is the best speaker can answer that question. So, Dirk, why don't you take it away?
We'll do it. Steve, thank you so much. And thanks for hosting us, Steve. The work that you all do at the wholesaler, the news that you all provide for the plumbing, heating, cooling, industrial piping distribution is just world-class. And thanks for putting this together.
Thank you.
Everybody, you're welcome. Absolutely. Guys, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm thrilled to be able to bring to you, along with the Wholesaler and Data Alliance, 5 amazing individuals who understand the supply chain and how to drive results through that. And I'd love to spend just a few minutes setting the stage before we turn it over to them. I always like to ask the question, how did we, you and I, and our speakers end up here together? And in order to do that, I need to bring you back all the way to 2008 when the Secretary of Defense, Secretary Rumsfeld, invited me to spend a week learning about the U.S. military. And one of those 7 days, we were out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We actually flew from Rio de Janeiro out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And by the way, if you ever have a chance to fly into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and land on an aircraft carrier, as I say, take it. It was an amazing experience. The things we learned, the people that were the cloth of our nation that we learned from, it was just an amazing, eye-opening experience. But there's a picture of the USS George Washington, the aircraft carrier that we landed on. Now, why do I tell you that? Because it was on that deck that I met a gentleman by pure serendipity who you see on the screen there on the left-hand side by the name of Saul Kaplan. Saul Kaplan every September has a 2-day innovation conference called BIF. During BIF, he puts 30 speakers on the stage that speak for no longer than 18 minutes. For 2 days, 30 speakers. The only thing those speakers have in common is one word. The one word they have in common is innovation. So several years ago, about 5 years ago, I'm sitting in the theater at the Business Innovation Factory Innovation Conference. And I'm sitting in that conference for 2 days. And I'm listening to these 30 different speakers come across the stage. And you guys, what I'm thinking about as I'm sitting there listening is I'm thinking about the 25 years history that I have working with distributors like you on this call today, working with manufacturers like you on this call today. And then I'm sitting there thinking about the 25 years of conversations that I've had in the industry. And then I'm thinking about everything that I'm hearing coming across that stage on the topic of innovation. And you guys, it was at that moment that I had an epiphany. And I sat in that theater alone when everybody went to lunch on day 2. And the epiphany I had, I wrote it down in my notepad, and here's the note that I wrote to myself that day in Providence, Rhode Island. The note said this. It said, innovation is bypassing distribution. One more time. Innovation is bypassing distribution. Now, I wasn't sure if I was right, so I left Providence, Rhode Island. I got on the phone, and I called my network of presidents, CEOs, owners of distribution businesses, and I said, here's where I was. Here's the epiphany that I had. Am I right? And I heard things from distribution leadership. I heard comments such as this. They said, Dirk, you're onto something. What you need to know is that less than 10% of distributors are prepared or are preparing for the future. Still another individual said, Dirk, much of the industry is working off of business models that are 50 years old. still another said, Dirk, what you need to understand that in general, we are not learning as fast as the world is changing. And still another said to me, Dirk, what you need to know is that many distributors are already out of business. They just don't know it yet. So it was those series of events that drove me down a path to inject a new spirit of change, transformation, and innovation throughout distribution. That led to me creating the only innovation conference for distributors, Unleash WD. 2 strategic days, this November 2nd and November 3rd. Data Alliance is a sponsor of ours and a partner. Thank you so much for that. 2 strategic days that is designed to transform your company's future. That led to some additional research that we did. And what I've learned is this. What I've learned is that most of us in distribution, we could be the CEO, we could be supply chain, we could be marketing, we could be operations. What I've learned is that the majority of us sense that there's a need for change. You see, here's what one individual said to me. He said, Dirk, we continue to do our job. We're adding value, we're working hard, we're managing our piece of the channel, and then some. He says, Dirk, you need to understand we have relationships up and down the channel. What he's saying is, Dirk, we're doing everything right. We're doing everything that the book tells us to do. We're doing everything that consultants tell us to do. He says, yet, Dirk, something doesn't feel right. Something just doesn't feel right. And guys, what I believe doesn't feel right, down to my core, is that we find ourselves living in the age of disruption. We find ourselves managing our businesses in the age of disruption. And what that means is that change is coming to us, change is coming at us faster than ever before. And I know you can feel that. I know that resonates with you. And the challenge is this. The change we feel typically is not coming from within our 4 walls. The change is coming at us. It's coming from outside of our business. As we've researched the disruptions going on in business today, we found that there are at least 8 dynamics, market dynamics that are impacting wholesale distribution. Some of those 8 dynamics, we don't have the time on this call to go through them all, but you see them on the screen. It's the generational shift of employees, the disruptive technology, the changing requirements of our customers, intensified competition, alternative channels, the transfer of power to customers and end users, compressed margins, the fact that we're all being commoditized as we speak. Here's one CEO who looked at his distribution business and he drew a picture. It's an amazing picture of all the disruption that's coming at his business all at once in this age of disruption. New competition, traditional competition, how the brick and mortar model without any change or innovation is going to perform going forward, how technology is impacting our business. We find ourselves in the age of disruption. So all of that led to me doing some research with the National Association of Electrical Distributors and the American Supply Association, and we asked about the partnerships between distributors and manufacturers, which bring us to our webinar today. And what we have found is that 91%, on average, 91% of us believe that there's a need for manufacturers and distributors to reimagine how they partner together. 91% of us believe we must reimagine how we partner with our supply chain partners, distributors, and manufacturers. That is the elephant in the room. And that brings us to today's webinar. That brings us to what we call collaborative commerce. You see, everybody understands there's a need to rethink how we can better work together in a win-win environment, in an environment where my profitability as the distributor does not have to come at your expense or your profitability as the manufacturer and vice versa. We can call this collaborative commerce. Collaborative commerce is all about moving beyond what I call personality-based partnering, where everything is based on individual relationships, to, importantly, organizational-based trust, where we ensure that our cultures are aligned, that we have the disciplines and the systems in place to help you win and I win at the same time, and that our technologies are aligned, and that we're all driving towards long-term partnerships. And that brings us to our host today, Data Alliance, collaborative commerce organizational partnering, and vendor-managed inventory. What is vendor-managed inventory? Vendor-managed inventory is a streamlined approach to inventory management and order fulfillment. VMI involves collaboration between suppliers and their customers, such as who you're going to hear from today, our featured speakers from Danze, Oatey, and Winsupply, which changes the traditional ordering process. I'll take it further, which changes the traditional partnering and collaborative process. The goal of VMI is to align business objectives and streamline supply chain operations for both suppliers and their customers. The business value of VMI is a direct result of increased information flow. Results such as improved inventory turns, improved service, increased sales, and more, as you're going to hear today. So let's get into the meat of today's webinar. And to get us started, what I'd love to do is I'd love to introduce you to our first featured speaker of the day, and that's Craig Holthus, who is the Director of Key Initiatives with Danze. Craig has about 27 years of marketing and operation experience. He's known for his cross-functional team leadership, strategic planning, and process improvement. He has spent, this is why I'm so excited to learn from Craig today, he has spent 16 years enhancing Danze's supply chain and information system, and the last 4 years directing multiple departments to complete strategic and C-suite initiatives. And Craig, thanks for being here. And Craig, what you don't know is I just got an email from your CEO, Keith Yurko. I emailed him and told him, hey, I'm about ready to jump on a webinar with you. And he said, that's awesome. He says, we've had an amazing experience with Data Alliance and Win. In fact, Win, who we're going to hear from in a little bit later, Winsupply told me that you all are an exceptional VMI partner with them. So I just got that 30 seconds ago from your CEO, Craig. So you're on the hot seat, bud, and I can't wait to learn from you.
Thanks for the introduction, Dirk.
You got it, man.
As Dirk has said, my name is Craig Holthus. I'm the Director of Key Initiatives here at Danze Incorporated and Gerber Plumbing Fixtures. I found my introduction to vendor-managed inventory back in the 1990s as an employee with Eco Housewares. At Eco, we developed and designed our own in-house VMI platform and onboarded a number of multiple trading partners, mostly in the grocery and hardware industries. Did that for a number of years, was hired with Danze Incorporated in the year 2000 as the Director of Operations. And after considering vendor-managed inventory for a number of years, gosh, it had to be at least 8 to 10 years here at Danze and Gerber, we decided to go forward with the VMI program, and I was asked to begin that development. Let me give you a little bit of background on Gerber and Danze first. First of all, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Globe Union Industrial Corporation, which is based in Taiwan. We have facilities and operations active on 3 continents in the world. We're semi-active in South America and Australia, in addition to the continents that you see here. Danze and Gerber are the branded side of that business, the branded side for North America in both Canada and the United States. We manufacture and supply toilets and lavatories, faucets, shower items, and bath accessories, and market them under the Danze and Gerber brand names. The origin of the VMI program, as I said, in 2015, late 2015, we decided to pursue development of a program. We didn't have a platform. We had a number of possible applications we could use. We looked at them all. We select Data Alliance as our platform of choice based on some recommendations that we had from some of the key trading partners who had approached us about getting involved. We went live with our first trading partner in 2016, which was Winsupply, with their 4 DC locations. After a period of about 6 months getting comfortable with the program and Data Alliance, we brought on our second trading partner, who is also U.S.-based and has 3 DC locations here in the United States. We've been live with them for about 6 months now, and we are now in development with 2 additional trading partners, one in the United States and one in Canada. So Data Alliance gives us the capability to cross borders when we need. We got a couple of special wrinkles in regard to our VMI program. When I was with the Housewares team, we just merely pulled an order in and pushed it out to the various DCs. We didn't have to worry about volume or minimums or truckload requirements. In our environment, vitreous china, which is toilets and lavatories, they're big, they're bulky, they're fragile. We have to plan those shipments in either full truckloads or what we call pool trucks, or some people refer to as multi-stop, where we have to plan multiple locations on any given day so that that truck will depart our facility and make those 2, 3, or 4 deliveries all within the same day. Sometimes for us and for our distributor partners, that is a very big issue because if we don't have a full truck, nobody's moves go. Fortunately, Data Alliance was able to cook in a multi-stop planning application for us so that when we plan some of our distributor locations, we can plan all 3 locations in conjunction with each other, make sure that we have a full truck, not an overfilled truck, so that we can have our departures on a weekly basis. We've got a second very special wrinkle to our VMI program, and that is, in addition to doing domestic fulfillment, where we merely have the product depart from our U.S. facility and deliver to our distributor's U.S. facility, we also have what we call our WOW program, or we also know it as Warehouse on Water. Some people may know it as direct import or direct delivery. In that environment, we make our shipments directly from our supplying factories in China in full ocean containers to our distributor locations. So we have 2 real wrinkles going on here, and we have 2 planning cycles. We'll take the WOW orders and plan those on a monthly basis. We'll back that up with our planning activity domestically. That domestic planning activity may or may not include products that are involved in the WOW program. It's really been a benefit to us and been a benefit to our downstream distributors because we can bypass a lot of inventory holding on our part. As far as our execution is concerned, how do we execute this program? Our vendor management, besides myself and a team who goes out and prospects targets, once we're up and live, our vendor managed inventory team is managed through our supply chain team. That team plans, executes the acquisition and the creation of inventory not only for our distributors, but this is the same team that's planning those same type of activities for us. They are the ones who work with our factories to get our supplies in, as well as getting the supplies from us to our downstream customers. Now, in addition to doing that order planning, our VMI planning team also performs coordination activities with our VMI partners and with other departments within our organization. We've found that with vendor managed inventory, you're running at a higher level of expectation. You've got to, in order to meet that expectation, you've got to better coordinate your internal activities to meet the needs of the program. So our VMI planning team will work not only with our customer care team to make sure that the sales orders flow correctly, they'll also work with our warehouse to make sure that the trucks, for instance, are pooled and depart, and they'll also follow up with our transportation team to make sure that we have timely deliveries. Because an untimely delivery is as bad to your flow as if it didn't ship on time, of course. Now, so that we have backup, being that we have 2 partners right now, each VMI partner has its own one assigned planner, and we don't do that because it's a major time drain. If anybody ever gives you the idea that you're going to have to hire one person when a new person totally dedicated to VMI, you're not going to have to. The reason we do it is really so that we can have redundancy and backup in case of vacations. To reiterate, VMI planning, especially through Data Alliance, you don't have to extend extensive resources for it. So why are we doing this? We had objectives. We all sat around here and we decided, hey, you know what, VMI is not an end, okay? VMI is an enabler to help you get some of your other goals that the organization may have. So the goals that we came up, that we decided on, is that we really needed to strengthen our partnerships with our distributors. And we felt that if we could do that by strengthening our relationship, we could better serve not only our distributor, but we could also better serve the customers that distributor serves. We hope that we would achieve increased visibility to the needs of our markets and to assist our trading partners to serve those markets, and we found that to be true. We have found, as I said earlier, we had to streamline a number of things. We cleaned up some choppy organizational issues that we had. We have improved the service to our distributors, which helps us to help them service their customers better. And lastly, what all this leads to is We have happy customers. I believe that, as Dirk mentioned earlier, I believe that Winsupply is very happy with the results that we've achieved. That makes them happy. That makes us happy. It makes our stakeholders and all of our internal and external investors very happy with the program. So the question you ask is, if you're going to get into a vendor-managed inventory partnership, who are those partners that you should select? For us, it's easy. You go out and you find those partners who are strategic to you, to your products, and to the markets you serve. You're going to need to be aware, especially as we were with truckload and multi-stop truckload requirements, those partners are going to have potential volume or the volume that's in place right now. And you also need to consider what is the nature of that volume. We do have some very large strategic accounts that don't hold inventory in distribution centers. Sometimes we ship direct to a job site. Sometimes we will ship directly to branches and bypass the distribution center. Those particular customers are probably not candidates for vendor-managed inventory if you're targeting a distribution center program. You need to find a partner who is willing to share responsibility with you. There are some customers out there who just do not want to give up responsibility for planning their inventory. And there are some customers out there who won't give it up because they don't understand how you do it. If they don't understand how you do it, they sometimes cannot get a handle around your program, regardless of the results. With Echo Housewares back in the 90s, we had a very successful program. With the mass merchant that we were dealing with, pulled that program out from under us because they had a number of various vendors who were outperforming them, but they really could not understand how they were doing it. So you've got to have a good shared responsibility, and you have to have people that are interested in working in conjunction with you to meet common goals. As far as trading partners are concerned, it's a bonus if that partner has VMI experience. They're already inculcated into the requirements. They already know the background of the program, and they're typically comfortable doing that. It's a super, super bonus for you if you have chosen Data Alliance as your partner, and that potential partner is already a Data Alliance partner. That will shortcut your development of your relationship with that customer by at least half, if not more. Having done this for over a year now, we start to take a look at what are the results that we've been seeing. For our trading partners, all of the trading partners that we're now live with have experienced increased sales. Now, I'm not going to sit here and fool you to say that all of those increased sales were due to VMI. That obviously is not the case. The customers that we brought on were already in a growth mode. But this did, I believe, help increase their growth mode. We've seen increased inventory turns for these customers, and we have seen less stockout activity on the shelves of the distributors that are involved with us. This really means for them it's better return on investment. I wish I could say that our distributor partners have seen decreases in inventory, but that is not always the case. What we have seen, though, is the increases in inventory that our downstream distributors have experienced is less than the increase in sales that they have had. So the inventory utilization is becoming much more efficient for the both of us. We've also seen a decrease in the amount of returns that we've experienced with our customers. What are our program highlights? We've seen increased sales. We've seen increased stocking SKUs in the downstream because we have visibility and we can recommend what's stocked and what's not stocked through negotiation with our trading partners. We've had that increased visibility, and I think we have more voice and increased communication with our trading partners. Lastly, as I kind of mentioned earlier, we have seen more cooperation not only with our partners, but within our own internal departments. People are now working together to make sure that this partner's products depart on time. So how do you get the success? You get the success by choosing your partners wisely. You need to make sure that you have strategic partners that are servicing the markets you're both interested in, and that you have an open and sharing relationship. That's a prerequisite for success in vendor-managed inventory. And then lastly, you need to be willing to accept change. Can't harp on this enough. This will change not only your external relationships, but it will also change your internal relationships. And that's the background on the Danze and Gerber Plumbing Fixtures vendor-managed inventory activity. And I will turn it back to Dirk.
Craig, just amazing, great information. Thank you so much. I love not only hearing your story, but hearing the passion with which you share that with. And when you talk about, to me, a golden thread in what you talked about was, the ability for VMI to help you, achieve your corporate objectives, one of which is certainly to strengthen that partnership with your trading partners. And then importantly, I hope we didn't miss it, where you talked about and improve that partnership not only with our distributors, but with our distributors' customers. I think putting that end user, that customer, that contractor at the center of partnerships is just critical. So I appreciate you sharing that entire story with us, Craig, and helping us understand VMI from your experience and your perspective. Thanks again, bud. All right, let's continue the conversation, everybody. And I'm really thrilled to introduce you now to Paul Snyder, who is the Lean Planning Manager with Oatey. As a logistics expert, Paul oversees the strategic deployment and management of planning activities for Oatey's finished goods. Now, what he does is he utilizes cost-benefit analysis, process improvement, negotiations, and as we'll hear, a host of other advanced logistic approaches. What I really love, what we're going to hear from Paul is how he helps Oatey's supply chain become a competitive advantage and the role that VMI plays in that. Paul, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to listen and to learn from you, bud.
All right. Well, thank you for the introduction. I appreciate it. That was very kind. So first of all, thanks to Winsupply, Data Alliance, and the wholesaler for this opportunity to share a bit of our story. We're very proud of the partnership that we've built over the last couple of years with Data Alliance. And, we're especially grateful that we've been able to leverage this VMI tool into a value-added service that we can offer out to our customers. I think we have a good story. It's still a program that we're broadening. And while our relative volume is not overwhelming, it can't be understated that for the relationships that we do have with customer partners, the results are very tangible. They're very trackable. Supply chain operations on both sides of the equation do reap the benefits. This isn't a one-sided proposition. And overall, the partnership that's forged by connecting with the customer can be very powerful. It allows for both of our sides to kind of automate the routine processes of buying and forecasting. You can start managing by exception, and the result of that is it clears a path for broader discussions on strategies, special projects, and all other larger scope items that go along with being effective buyers, planners, forecasters, whatever your role is in supply chain. So a little bit about Oatey Company. Founded almost 101 years ago, in 1916 by L.R. Oatey. We started with a product called roof flashings, and throughout the years we've added products, brands, locations, different offerings to be the company that we are today. Throughout this, though, we've remained a family-owned company with members of the Oatey family in various positions throughout the whole company. And I think the point worth mentioning here is that we are an established company with history, but the drive to evolve, embrace new ideas, different technologies, and best practices is a big part of what keeps us around for 100 years. And I think that's probably a microcosm for why a lot of us are here today listening in on this conversation. So headquarters-wise, we have been in Cleveland and will remain in Cleveland. We recently built a new headquarters to complement the manufacturing and distribution presence that we have in Northeast Ohio. Beyond that, we do operate globally with facilities as well as customers in all stretches of the globe, including Asia, Canada, Mexico, Latin America, and so on and so forth. Our VMI reach is concentrated in North America at this point. So a little bit about our products, and this kind of complements Craig's presentation where he has the faucets, the sinks, the toilets, kind of the outward-facing products in the plumbing world. Our products are a little bit more behind the wall. So we manufacture and sell these products throughout the world. They include solvent cements, roof flashings, air admittance valves or AAVs, washing machine outlet boxes, plumbing chemicals, wax blow rings, as well as other. So in total, there's around 600 or 6,000 plus products that we sell. So onto our VMI timeline. So we started in 2008, and we were more or less directed into VMI by a customer, and a customer not named Win Wholesale. So we looked into it, we complied, we set a program up, we mapped out all the transactions, and the process was basically established and handed over to our order entry team on the customer service side. So we were officially on board. So our sales team, for the most part, conducted kind of the market diligence and surveyed the field, and Data Alliance was probably the known leader in the industry, and luckily enough, it was the same supplier that our customer was recommending. So we started, and shortly after, we noticed a couple things. One, and probably most importantly, we received great feedback from our customer. So stock out levels at their branches were improving, inventory was aligned to provide quick fulfillment, and the POs were basically right-sizing themselves. So we got our first supplier on. And fast forward a couple years, we started suggesting, and I say we, probably our sales force started suggesting to customers across the board that, hey, we've got this great tool. If it's of interest to you, it's something that we can host and set up pretty easily. And luckily, we pitched that over to Winsupply. So Winsupply will probably talk through why they thought it was advantageous to do it. But for our sake, in 2011, we did launch our first PO for Win Dayton. And then there's a bit of a gap here. So 2011, we launched. The product is still sitting in our order entry department. 2012, we went through an ERP transition. And then in 2013, we really started evolving with the program. And this is kind of the point where we realized that, yeah, we can generate a good PO. The customer is pretty happy with it. But there's a lot of tools out here that we can leverage from a supply chain perspective that would really take full advantage of the program. And this is probably where the collaboration, directly with Winsupply started to take place and started to become effective. So discussions evolved from, more or less gut checking the POs to looking at inventory turns, whether we needed to move them up, and in some cases actually move inventory turns down. We looked at seasonal bumps, never stock out programs for exclusive items. We started reviewing inventory dollars, evaluating stock out patterns, establishing thresholds for stock versus non-stock items. We started working with Winsupply on customer shifts, whether it be geographically or through other DCs. We were proactive in new location startup. And in summary, I guess we were just proactively working with the customer on mutually shared goals and objectives. So the other side of this is that while we're working on this, there's a tool with Data Alliance that kind of easily and effectively maneuvers throughout all these objectives and provide you some very easy levers to push and pull against to make it happen. So benefits of the VMI program. So I'll go over three of the operational benefits. So the first one being flow of product, second one being fulfillment rates, and then lastly the turns piece. So product flow, and this kind of goes hand in hand with managing turns. But part of the process of starting on VMI is driving a consistent order schedule. So having the proper mins and maxes set mean that you aim at covering your peaks, but also not overreacting to unforeseen spikes that don't necessarily have a repeating pattern. And again, Data Alliance provides the levers to quickly call out the exceptions, gives you a choice on how to react to those exceptions, and then move quickly on an execution plan. Secondly, fulfillment rates. And what's important here is that we're looking at our customers' fulfillment rates. So how are they performing in providing inventory to their branches or to their companies? And what we saw and what we shared and what Winsupply shared with is that, our fill rates are improving because of the VMI program. So this means fewer stockouts. It means less lost sales, which is a huge benefit to both companies, and doing this without hyperinflating your inventory. So this is important. I mean, inherently you have to inflate your inventory to some degree to improve fill rates. But, the tool gives us some flexibility to inflate the right products. So I believe there's 10 to 12 different product velocity categories that we gauge, movement on an item. So being able to kind of surgically move levers across product lines is a huge advantage, and it provides a real impact in terms of hitting fill rates without blowing up inventory. So kind of the last slide here I have, and the last operational advantage, is kind of our turn stabilization. So there's not a lot of numbers on this graph, but I think it's very telling that pre-VMI, which is in red, what you see is probably fairly typical, where inventory is at some point too high, your turns are way down, and the obvious reaction is to start, reducing inventory carrying costs. So you ramp down, you ramp down, you ramp down, and then you find yourself too lean. So you're exposed to stock outs. Your turns are probably going a little bit too fast, so then you take the opposite reaction. So you get this sawtooth display here of results, reaction, opposite results, opposite reaction. And then obviously the post-VMI line, very stable, very agreed upon with both parties. And worth mentioning that is probably our largest talking point, is where do we want to be at in terms of turns? What's your objective on turns? Are you more of a never stock out strategy, or do we need to lean things down so that we're okay with a threshold of stock outs, but we'd rather have less inventory carrying costs? So that's about it. There's a lot of operational benefits to the program. There's a lot of intangible benefits, regarding partnership building, collaboration, meeting with a customer once a quarter to actually go through this stuff. Definitely cements the bonds. It aligns our strategies and makes sure that we're all working towards the same thing. So that's our Oatey VMI story. So I will pass it back to Dirk.
Paul, I really appreciate it. Again, great insight. How you have used VMI in a strategic manner, not only internally, but with your partners to really drive value add throughout the channel. It's just a great story. And I agree with you. This last slide that you put up here, even without the numbers, it really is telling in terms of how to drive strategic collaboration, collaborative commerce between yourselves. So, Paul, just great insight. I really appreciate it, bud. Thank you. All right, let's move now, if you don't mind, everybody, to hear from the distributor on the group. And in order to do that, we're going to hear from three great leaders with varying degrees of years of experience in the industry. Three great leaders from Winsupply. We've got on the call with us three individuals. We've got Paul Snyder, who is the lean, no, we don't. We have Michael McGee, who is the purchasing manager with Winsupply. He's got more than 10 years of experience in wholesale distribution industry, and he focuses on pricing strategies, logistics planning, and managerial approaches. So we're going to hear from Michael. We're also going to hear from Daniel Schultz. Daniel, I told you I was going to mess it up, man. Fix me when you get on, all right? Sorry, Dan. Dan, how do you pronounce your last name? I had you say it to me 3 times, and I practiced before we went, and I still screwed it up.
It's just
Dan?
like house with an S on the front. Shouse.
Well, you didn't give me that clear of direction. Boy, Dan.
It's okay. Trust me, you're closer than most people have ever come.
I think you're just being too damn nice to me. Thanks, Dan. Sorry about that. So we got Dan Schaus. Really, what you're going to hear, man, the skill and the professionalism that he brings to high-volume account pricing really is eye-opening. And he's been praised throughout his career for his ability to develop talent and empower others as well. And then we've also got Jay Carson. And as he'll tell you, even though he's beginning his career, he's already earned certification as a Six Sigma green belt. And he's got a concentration. He's got a BA with a concentration in operations and supply chain management. And I think this is so cool because I think we need these new insights brought into our industry from individuals like Jay as well. So Winsupply team, thank you so much for being here. Really look forward to learning from you as we go forward here.
Dirk, thanks a lot for those kind words of introduction, and thanks to everybody who's on the call out there in the ether. My name, like Dirk said, is Michael McGee. I'm the purchasing manager with Winsupply. We're an organization that has been around for over 60 years. We're headquartered in Dayton, Ohio. We're privately owned, and we sell almost exclusively plumbing and HVAC and industrial supply from our 584 locally owned wholesale corporations. And each one of those is an independent C corporation with which we have an equity partnership with the president or manager of that company. Last year we had revenue approaching $3 billion. And we've got within the distribution arm, of which we three here are a part, Winsupply Sourcing Services, we've got 4 distribution centers across the country: Middletown, Connecticut, Richmond, Virginia, Dayton, Ohio, and Denver, Colorado. We provide material and logistics support to those 584 local wholesaling companies. It represents approximately 130 vendors and just about $82 million in standing inventory. So before we went live with VMI, the buyers, of course, had some kind of relationship with the suppliers, but it was really just a transactional relationship. And there wasn't much discussed other than, hey, did you get that PO? Hey, where are the new item numbers that are coming out? Hey, is this item obsolete? And we did some calculations about how much time VMI saved us. And 6 months of wasted labor went into managing our administrative level SKUs, handling the obsolescence, handling what new SKUs are coming on, and just maintaining that data. And while we certainly could track fill rate and inventory turns and days on hand at that time, we didn't have a practice of scheduled metrics that we looked at like we do now. I'm going to pass it over to Jay Carson here.
Hi, everybody. We talked about life before VMI in our company, and I'm now going to start to talk about why we chose to work with Data Alliance. We found that with Data Alliance, we have a better relationship with a lot of our suppliers. We see a higher level of collaboration with them. We also see there's an increase in our inventory productivity after we've onboarded Data Alliance. And some of you might know this, some of you might not, but Winsupply is in a growth period right now, and Data Alliance allows us to add new suppliers while also maintaining the current headcount. For example, we had an average sales increase of about 20% when we added on about 5 suppliers, but in that time we only had a 5% increase in our inventory. We also found that we have a more analysis-driven way of creating our purchase orders, where before it was more of a brute force method. And because of Data Alliance, customers get a more accurate product mix from us. And exactly as you can see on screen, after Data Alliance, we had a decrease in our standing inventory, while at the same time increasing our turns for the vendors who needed the inventory increase, the turns increase. And we also saw a inventory carrying cost savings. And on this screen, you can see after implementing the Alliance, of course, it wasn't 100% Data Alliance, but a lot of our companies had a sharp increase in their sales. And with this, VMI also establishes a more regular demand pattern, which in turn allows suppliers to reduce their WIP and smooth their production schedules. I want to talk about how we find our prospective suppliers. We go after companies where we can see a chance to improve their KPIs. So some of the things that we track are inventory turns, days on hand, and back orders. We also go after suppliers that have had either recent growth or that we can see growth potential in them. And we also try to go for vendors that have high sales volumes across all of our 4 DCs. We try not to go immediately after the ones that have high sales volume in 1 or 2 of our DCs. And using these metrics that we track, we go for the larger vendors first and work our way down. And currently, with vendors that we have 100% on VMI, we have quarterly reviews where we discuss the goals that we have and the way we set in the beginning, and also look for opportunities to improve upon the program that we have set for ourselves. Our team consists of me as the inventory analyst. We also have Dan Armstrong and Amy Reed, who are our EDI gurus. And we have a team of buyers who have a bevy of information that they share with me to help me improve upon our VMI program. And like I said before, we track back orders, fill rates, inventory turns, and days on hand. Our Vice President, Rick McCann, one of his favorite metrics to track is the fill rates. And to ensure that VMI works for us, we try to make sure that there's a constant stream of communication between both the vendor and the distributor, which is us. And we also need to make sure that we update Data Alliance with any changes and additions to the product mix for our vendors. Now I'm going to pass it off to Daniel Schaus.
So our current VMI program has 10 vendors and 2 more which are in the onboarding process. We hope to have them implemented sometime later this year. This accounts for approximately 35,000 of our SKUs, which translates into roughly $17.6 million of our standing inventory being managed through a VMI relationship. So looking ahead, we're hoping to add 6 to 12 new suppliers to our VMI program this year. And long-term goal, we'd like to see 50% of our DC sales revenue managed through a VMI relationship. In addition, we hope to continue to focus and improve on our inventory productivity, some of the metrics we've spoke of earlier, metrics like turns, fill rate, etc. And obviously, we've talked a lot about collaboration. We hope to continue to enhance collaboration with our current VMI suppliers and hopefully new VMI suppliers. And finally, and I think one of the most important, because one of the questions that kind of has been dancing around is, how do you keep focus on your VMI program? And for us, in addition to having a dedicated resource like Jay, education is a huge factor into that. And so we hope to continue to educate internal customers or internal players on the value proposition for VMI. And specifically, we hope to continue to work with our product management team so that when they're bringing a new vendor on board, we can introduce the VMI proposition much earlier in the supplier engagement process. And that concludes the Winsupply portion, and I think I'll go ahead and hand it back over to the moderator.
Cool. I appreciate it, guys. Great, great stuff. I got to tell you, I'm a huge fan of Winsupply, your business model and your commitment to the contractors and other end users that you guys sell to is just amazing. What I heard here is, your focus on your supply chain partners and how you guys are able to scale your business and your partnerships, and importantly, the business outcomes through VMI. Just a great, great story. So thank you so much for the team of the 3 of you. So guys, let's switch gears here just for a little bit. I'd love to introduce you to a good friend of mine, somebody that I've got the highest respect for with Data Alliance, and that is Tom Horan. Those of you that don't know Tom, he's got an advanced degree for the last 7 years, man. He's been transforming the way the plumbing industry views VMI and has helped 16 leading plumbing manufacturers and 20-plus plumbing wholesalers leverage the value of VMI. So here's a gentleman that understands supply chain, that understands partnering, that understands technology, that understands VMI. And Tom, maybe the only thing that I have more respect over and above what I just mentioned is, Tom, your unbelievable commitment to your customers' success. It's inspiring, bud, and thanks for being here, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you've heard today and the whole VMI value proposition.
Thanks, Dirk. I really do appreciate that kind introduction. I don't know that I live up to all that, but it's very kind to hear it. Thanks so much. For those of you that don't know Data Alliance, we're a cloud-based service provider of vendor-managed inventory services. As you can see on the screen, I've been working with plumbing suppliers and wholesalers for just about 7 years now. And in that 7 years, we've really seen a change. And that change we have seen is really VMI adoption rates have skyrocketed, quite frankly. And I kind of wanted to dive in on this call to why that has occurred. At the core of VMI is collaboration and enhanced collaboration. As we heard from Dirk, the suppliers and wholesalers are always looking for ways to get closer together and to deepen those working relationships. You heard from Craig, you heard from Paul, Mike, Daniel, and Jay. VMI relationships are really built on this idea of advanced collaboration with suppliers and wholesalers. Collaboration can take a lot of different forms as it relates to vendor-managed inventory, so let's take a closer look at a few of those areas that VMI really affects. If I go counterclockwise, let's look at less rework. The order process is set up on a time schedule. This is really done to service the end customer. Getting the order right the first time saves everyone cost, time, and effort. In the VMI process, all part numbers match accurately, and purchase orders should flow through without interruption. If I move on to eliminating emergencies, emergencies can not only create a bunch of headaches for us all in stressful situations, but can also be a costly interruption to normally scheduled workflow. We all know about rush orders. They create havoc on our everyday, daily operation. The consistency of the VMI process should eliminate many emergency order situations. Performance metric insight. You know, quite frankly, when you implement any process, including vendor-managed inventory, you must track performance to gain continuous improvement. One of the great outputs of VMI processes is the daily performance reporting on critical and crucial business metrics. Setting goals around growing sales, increasing inventory turnover, and improving service levels not only create a happy customer, but ensure a healthy cash flow. And you are lucky enough to see some value propositions that each Danze Incorporated as well as Oatey had showed with their own VMI programs. Most plumbing suppliers have wide, and I mean wide, product breadth, thousands and thousands of part numbers. Wholesalers tend to carry hundreds of suppliers on their core line card. Let's be real clear here. There's bound to be product mix gaps when you have resource constraints on the product mix. As Dirk mentioned, everything is moving faster these days, at the speed of sound almost. Throw in innovative new products, water regulation, multiple product transitions, and it does become challenging and difficult to manage product assortment. The VMI process allows suppliers and wholesalers to fill that product assortment gap that better serves our end customer. Better transportation utilization. No doubt this is big. It's a big cost for many of our partners. Increasing freight costs are cutting into profitability and margins every day. A balanced time supply allows for more efficient inventory profiles and more complete order fill. VMI utilizes economic order principles around weight, dollar, pallet, truckload type orders, building thresholds that gain daily transportation savings. You know, if I look at this sheet and kind of summarize it all up, the VMI process, or the vendor managed inventory process, requires collaboration across many fronts. This collaboration leads to stronger, as you said, Dirk, organizational relationships, and most importantly, what we're all after, better financial results. At Data Alliance, we continue to see the VMI, vendor managed inventory process, produce better results on core metrics. The VMI process serves as a daily communication platform for collaborations between the supplier and that wholesaler. And Dirk, I'll pass it back to you, but I think you know best. You know, there's some changing times here, and suppliers and distributors and wholesalers are collaborating to move it forward. And I'm sure you can touch on that, and I think that's a good theme to end this webinar on.
Cool, Tom. I appreciate it, man. And again, I appreciate your insight, your commitment to the industry and to your customers. And it really is great stuff. And, you know, you mentioned about the pace of change, Tom, and the importance of collaboration and partnering, and we've heard about that. What I'd love to do is I mentioned, you know, hearing from Keith Yurko, the CEO of Danze, I think it would be good for everybody on the call to know that 4 weeks ago we had your boss, the president of Data Alliance, Carl Hall, on our podcast, Innovate for the Future, where we spoke for over 30 minutes about the key to partnering through collaboration. And we do talk about VMI there, but it's really about the strategy behind it all. And so those of you that are interested in that, in this pace of change, driving collaboration and all that, that podcast is up there on dirkbeverage.com/podcast. But hey, looking at everything, guys, the speakers that we've had here, the 5 of you, we've had some cool questions come in as you've been talking about. So we've got about 5, 6, 7 minutes here. So before we conclude, let me just throw a couple of these questions at you all. One of the questions comes around, you know, maintaining focus on the priorities and the momentum around VMI. And Dan from Winsupply, you talked about, you know, having dedicated resources like Jay and education and ensuring that everybody in the organization understands the value proposition from VMI. But Craig and Paul, I'd be interested from either of your perspective. Look, we are all busy. We've all got multiple priorities pulling at us. How do you maintain yourselves, your teams, your organization? How do you guys keep momentum around VMI when other priorities are competing for your attention? Craig or Paul, do you guys have any insights on that?
Well, this is Craig. You know, for a manufacturer, you have to keep in mind that, as I said earlier, VMI is not an end result. It's an enabler to the other objectives that you may have. Those objectives may be to increase sales or improve partnership or improve visibility, or it may be that your marketing team wants to know more about the marketplace that's going on down. So you've got to accept that and use VMI as a tool to get to your greater objectives. With that in mind, when we have conversations with our sales team and they bring up some of their objectives, we often counsel that vendor managed inventory may be a tool that they can use to increase their activity.
Yeah, great stuff. Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. Paul, any insights on that?
You know, the only thing I would add was that it's been important for us to have kind of an executive sponsor around this program, and we've been fortunate enough to have that. So in terms of competing objectives and priorities, you know, I think it's important that the organization sees the benefit and, you know, not just supply chain or not just the purchasers. And, you know, by having that momentum, you know, once you start up a VMI relationship, it's not difficult to start up a second or a third one. So I think once you get started, the momentum will take care of itself.
Cool. I appreciate that. And it sounds like, Paul, you would agree with what we heard from Daniel and the others from Winsupply, that it's important to educate internally the value of the VMI initiative to the rest of the team. So thank you. All right, guys. So we've got some good things there. Hey, let's jump over to this other question I see that's coming in. And the teams from Winsupply, I'd like to direct this to you. Somebody put on the question, 6 months of wasted work hours per quarter, ? And it sounds like there's a little bit of surprise relative to the number of work hours that were wasted per quarter on SKUs. Guys, did we hear that number right? And can you tell us a little bit, were you surprised by the numbers, and what was that discovery like when you found those wasted work hours?
I believe that may have been a typo. I think that was 600 work hours per year, so that 6 month number, whatever it was.
I'm glad we asked. Good.
Yeah, per year. We weren't exactly happy with that number, but after looking at it after we implemented VMI, we were excited to see such a large improvement. And we believe that was because of our workers more focused on the transactional. But now that we have VMI, we can see focus more on analytics. So we are extremely excited about that number shrinking.
Awesome. Awesome. And that was Jay. Is that right? Sharing that with us?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jay, thanks, man. Thanks for the insight. I appreciate that. Thanks. Okay,
problem.
hey Craig, let me jump up to you if you don't mind. There's a question about geography and VMI, across, serving several countries and the like. So I know at Danze, and you mentioned it, you're shipping product from several countries and locations. How have you found this, to work with VMI, the fact that you're shipping from several countries and several locations?
Well, the WOW program puts us into two distinct planning cycles. The shipments that are coming from the Chinese factories directly to our distributor locations in North America, those run on a monthly basis because you're talking up to 4 weeks for a container to depart the factory and deliver to the customer. So you've got a monthly planning cycle for the WOW. We have a weekly planning cycle for the origin departures within North America. Not all of our products are eligible for the WOW program. Even those that are eligible for the WOW program, we use the weekly domestic planning cycle to act as a backstop, and we will backfill to give us that week or two of inventory that we may need while those containers are inbound.
Got it. Cool. Thank you. All right, and I know we're up on time, but I think this is pretty important. Paul, maybe I'll ask you to comment on this. There's a question about, evaluating VMI and maybe evaluating VMI companies. Can you share with us what would you tell individuals or organizations that are evaluating VMI from your perspective, Paul? What should they really be zeroed in on in making the decision of if VMI is right and if you don't mind, if Data Alliance is the right organization for them?
All right. So, I'd say a couple things, and Craig alluded to this on his PowerPoint as well. But, I think, first of all, the customer has to be ready for VMI. So if they are, for instance, not on EDI yet, then that conversation probably isn't worth having. If they are on EDI, that's a great step. If they are on a VMI program, all the better. If they're on VMI with Data Alliance, then that's a no-brainer. The other piece, and I think you need to work closely with your sales organization to make sure that this is a partner that we want to go forward with. I think that's probably where we get our leads from, is from the sales team to say this is a partner we'd really like to grow with. We'd like to add the VMI portion as one of the value adds when we talk to this customer. And then we kind of step in and kind of facilitate that and see if there's anything there. So, those are, I guess, our primary options when we look at prospective suppliers. In regards to Data Alliance, we often use their displays on metrics, kind of our success story, to kind of promote what they've done for us and what they think they can do to potential VMI customers going forward. Yeah.
Dynamite. Paul, I appreciate it. Thank you. Well, guys, we are up against the clock, and there are a few more questions that are coming in. Those that are coming in, we will ask Data Alliance to get those answered going forward. So I really appreciate the insight that you shared, Craig, Paul, Michael, Dan, Jay, and Tom from Data Alliance. Steve Smith, thank you so much for hosting us, bringing your readers to this conversation on the importance of vendor-managed inventory. And hopefully everybody on board here has really gotten a great perspective from our speakers relative to VMI being this streamlined approach to inventory management and fulfillment. And it really is a strategic tool to align your business objectives and streamline your supply chain operations to achieve your strategic priorities. This will be live online, but for right now, thank you so much for joining us, and everybody go out and have a great day. Thanks for joining us today.